right, so this is episode number 3 of Subsurface podcast, and I'm exhausted. I had a crazy couple of weeks already as it was, and then just got back from a trip from Texas. Well, just finished a week of work that was crazy as usual, but also had an entire week that I spent in Houston. So I'm gonna talk about that a little bit, but I got something cool that it's not mounted yet. You probably saw it on Facebook already if you're on my Facebook. But I still gotta get a shelf to mount this thing on. But check it out. Sick, huh? So I'm gonna get a wooden shelf, put it right under here, right under this window above me that's not in frame. I'm gonna get a wooden shelf that matches the other ones and mount that up there. I don't really want to screw it to the wall, but a shelf looks like it belongs there, and a sign really doesn't. So, um, yeah. So basically, this episode is going to be talking about travel. Not so much of like travel tips and stuff like that. I just kind of wanted to keep it simple. Um, the first two episodes were the first one was with me and a buddy of mine, Cameron. The second one was with myself, and they were basically talking about our careers and just work related stuff. I think there's some good information there, but wanted to change it to something else. I'm going to go through a bunch of different topics as these episodes go on, but this one I want to talk about some travel experiences. Um, Pretty much all the places I've been to, my favorite places, some things that have happened, some things that I've seen, and where I want to go. It's not going to be a long episode at all, but it's something I wanted to do. So I just went to Texas for a week. I'm from Texas. I was born in Houston. I spent a couple years there as a child. My parents split up. My mom moved us, my siblings and I, all to Florida. I was like 4 years old, I think. And you probably can't even see that sign because the mic is in the way. One day I'll have a nice studio where it all makes sense. So until then, bear with me, please. So, yeah, moved to Florida when I was like 4 years old with my mom and siblings. I was in Orlando for 4 or 5 years, and then I came to Tampa Bay in '97. Anyway, I don't know why I'm going about my whole life story. So my dad still lives in Texas, and I wanted to bring my daughter there. She had never been on a plane before, never been to Texas. So between me, my dad, and his wife, we planned this trip where I'll be honest, I didn't do any of the planning, but we got together on what time frame, like what time of the year worked best, and we went and spent 7 days there, and it was a good time. And it kind of started off rough and ended rough because fucking these flights, man. Like, I don't understand. It just seems like these commercial airlines are getting worse as time goes on and not better or even maintaining like a decent structure. It seems the majority of airlines out there all fly Boeing aircraft, most of them, which, I mean, whatever, that doesn't really mean anything because, like, when you look at cars on the road, it seems like most people drive Toyota Corolla, Honda Civic, Ford F-150. Most people, right? That doesn't mean every vehicle. It doesn't mean those most common vehicles are bad. Obviously, that's not the case. You would think the same thing with Boeing. Like, if most airlines use one manufacturer and they use like a handful of different Boeing aircraft, they would probably be the best there is because there's a reason they're so widespread. And I know it's not a simple answer, but I was frustrated on this trip because the flight out there got delayed a lot. I don't mind being inconvenienced a little bit. I don't mind a delay. It doesn't bother me at all. I don't care if I'm an hour or 2 hours late. I prefer not to have to do a layover unexpectedly and miss a day out of my plans. That's a big deal. But besides that, I don't mind being delayed. However, excuse me. The flight out there was delayed 3 hours plus. And I guess it was for weather reasons. It was coming from up north, so that's fine. Went about my trip, and I'll just talk about the return flight real quick before I get into the trip. So I was on another Boeing 737, same airplane that I took out there, and it was delayed for like 2 hours, about an hour and a half actually. And when they finally said, okay, we're ready to start boarding everybody, everyone got in a plane, everyone was sitting down. And then we're sitting there for like 30, 40 minutes. And then the pilot gets on the intercom and says, they found something in our pre-flight checks. They got to check it out real quick and see if it's something they need to fix. Just sit tight. Delayed further. Everyone's moaning and shit. And then they were like, okay, well, they need to fix it. It's going to take a while. So we need everyone to get off the plane, go back into the gate, and sit tight until we're ready to go. It was delayed like 3.5 hours total. And they were fixing some like fuel level sending unit or something like that. It was in this left side wing right outside my window. I'm looking at them. They're up on a ladder underneath the wing checking something out. And I'm like, of course. So they had to fix our plane before we could fly it. And meanwhile, this is while Boeing has all this PR the past like 3 or 4 weeks where they had one aircraft that everyone was talking about because like the door flew off. They say that was user error, whatever the case is. There was another one where it landed somewhere and there was missing an exterior panel. It was a pretty big piece that just wasn't fucking there. Another one took off, a larger Boeing aircraft. One of the wheels fell off. They were like 100 feet in the air. This wheel fell off into a parking lot and just fucking destroyed this Kia. Luckily, no one was in it. And then like mine had some fuel sensor issues or whatever. There was a few more. There was one where there was some stupid button in a weird spot where a flight attendant hit a button on the captain's chair. It pushed him into the controls and made the plane nosedive. And like people got injured from it. The plane got damaged from people's bodies hitting the roof so hard. That's not a good look. I mean, Jesus Christ. So anyway, besides the flight there and back, the trip was cool. Had a good time. My daughter was scared to fly at first, which was funny. Because I remember when I first got in a plane for the first time, I didn't know what to expect. All I ever saw was like plane crash videos before I flew, right? That's the only thing you see is plane crash videos. So she was nervous, and I was like, there's nothing to worry about. Flying on a plane is just like being on a city bus. It's just, they do like 600 miles an hour. And she's like, it's not helping. But she got the hang of it after a while. She ended up putting her phone in front of her on the little tray and did like a time-lapse video of her just fucking around. So when we finally landed in Texas, we were delayed so long that like we had these dinner plans to go somewhere fancy with me, my dad, his wife, my daughter, and they had to get canceled because we were too late. So we stopped at a Chick-fil-A on the way to their house, and the next day we ended up going to downtown Houston, walked around a little bit, walked through some parks, looked at some historic areas where they actually took some really old houses and put them in a park for people to look at. And then that was kind of just to kill time. We ended up parting ways with my dad's wife and my daughter. Went to this performing arts theater to watch some play. Actually, they saw Beetlejuice. And then when they were doing that, me and my dad went to the gun range and fired off our handguns. And I have my first ever gun. It was brand new. I didn't shoot it yet, so I went to Texas and put some rounds through it. My Glock G43X, which was a lot of fun. I'm not as bad as I thought I would be. So, yeah, I had a great time. I took some slow motion videos there and tested out my dad's gun, which was a Smith & Wesson SP90, I think it was. It's a 45, and his gun was a little bit nicer than mine, I think. A little bit bigger than mine. The recoil wasn't that bad. This isn't a gun show, but I get carried away really easily, if you haven't noticed. Yeah, it was a really nice gun, though. So I'm looking into more purchases in the near future. Anyway, so, Texas is, if you've never been there, Houston anyway, is like, it's like Tampa Bay. If you live in Central Florida, excluding Orlando, like Tampa Bay and Houston are very similar. They're both big cities. Houston is bigger in space, and they have more people there, but it's very diverse. There's so much to do. Um, it's a big financial place as well, and it's I like Houston a lot. There's just like anywhere else, especially like Tampa. You have like too much people. You have a bunch of crime and stuff like that, but it's really not that bad depending on what neighborhood you live in. If you live in some rough areas like anywhere else, it's gonna be the same old story. Um, we ended up going to a rodeo there. It's like the biggest rodeo in the country. A bunch of people were there, like a bunch of famous people were there. I didn't even know until after the fact, but that was pretty cool. My daughter had never been to a rodeo before, and they had like a carnival outside as well, and some livestock indoors, and we were there all day. Man, it was exhausting. Rodeos are pretty cool. Like it's not just about sitting in the stands, sweating your butt off and getting bit by bugs and watching someone ride a bull for a few seconds. It's so much more than that. Like there's so much to do at a rodeo. If you've never been to a rodeo, I highly recommend it, especially a big one like that. Um, I mean, this one's so big, it goes on for days, and they have like almost like a Super Bowl halftime party or halftime show where they'll have like um, musician perform. They'll have like a country singer one day, a rapper the next day, and like someone else the third day. It's awesome. We also went to the Museum of Natural Science, which had a King Tut exhibit, a standalone Egypt exhibit with a bunch of artifacts and mummies and stuff like that. It was crazy. It was more than I expected. Honestly, the Egyptian exhibit was sick, and they had Mayans there as well. That was awesome. Museum of Natural Science in Houston is crazy. Like, it makes our museums in Tampa look like shit, to be honest. Went to the Houston Space Center. Um, they have all kinds of stuff on display there, like the 747 that was transporting the shuttle from the West Coast over back to Florida, so it can be launched. That was on the display there. You can walk inside of both of those and check them out. It was a really cool place. We went on a VIP NASA tour where we were guided around for a couple of hours by some NASA employees, checking out we went through the property where we saw like mission control. We saw where they had the Saturn V rocket. We saw the centrifuge, which is closed down, where they used to test the astronauts for their high G-force scenarios. OSHA apparently shut that down, so I don't know if something happened, but I saw the building where it took place, so that was in a lot of movies and stuff. I saw a building where they say they had a whole bunch of moon rocks inside there, and they're gonna have some Mars rocks in there too. And I was like, oh, that's cool. We went to that swimming pool where they do training in the water to simulate spacewalks around the ISS. That was a pretty cool place to see. Same thing. It's been in a bunch of movies and stuff to see. That training facility was pretty awesome. And there was so much we saw there. I couldn't even go into it all. So much shit. That also was like an all day thing. The last day we were there, I got talked into doing a spa day, and I'm not one to get like my manicure pedicure kind of thing done, but my dad and his wife, my daughter, were all doing it. They're like, "Oh, come on, do it," and I didn't want to be that guy, so I went ahead and joined them, and it was kind of nice. I got to be honest, having had like hot towels on my arms, hot wax on my feet, just getting cleaned up. It's not something I would do normally, but it was pretty cool, I guess. Pretty relaxing. But yeah, so my trip to Texas was awesome. It was exhausting, but it was nice to be back. I hadn't been there in 14 years. So yeah, it changed a lot, but it's a really cool place. It's one of those places where I would say if you live somewhere where you don't think your economy's doing very well and you want to live in a city where you definitely have opportunity, almost doesn't even depend on the economy of the country. In a lot of ways it does, but a lot of ways it doesn't. Like Houston is so they're just so strong in so many ways. There's so much success in Houston. It's kind of mind blowing. So like if you live in a small town, you're like, man, there's no jobs out here. There's nothing to do for me here, or you work in the biggest company in your city, but it's going belly up. Move to Houston. Like you can get some success out there for sure. All kinds of stuff, whether it's renewable resources, finance. I mean, any kind of if you own a business of any sort, like a lawn service company, whatever, like plumber, electrical, construction. I don't think you'll ever be out of work. Um, so that was my trip to Texas. It was awesome. I want to talk about some places I've been to, and I'm afraid like a podcast like this might be seen as pretty boring to some people, but at the end of the day, I started this podcast for myself just to kind of like kill time and um, like I have a big idea behind it, but initially it was just to kind of kill time and do it for myself and kind of feel like I'm doing something with my spare time instead of nothing. Like it depends. Like I got stuff that I do. Like I exercise. I play the guitar. I go spend time with my daughter at parks and stuff. But like sometimes I'll be at home doing nothing, and I'm like, I got so many things I want to talk about, and pretty much I'm just getting my feet wet. And these podcasts are not going to be the best until I get more experience with it, and get used to the whole operation of it all with the computer and editing and stuff. But they're going to be good soon. So deal with it. That's what I'm trying to say. So basically, there's one place I actually forgot to write down. I wrote down a few places that I've been to. Forgot about that one. If you can't see it, I got a refrigerator over here. It's kind of hard to see, but I got some magnets on the side of it that all show places I've been to. And because there's only one place I've ever been to outside the country, and that was the one place I forgot to write down. I'll go over that one last. So, and they're all kind of almost like bunched together as far as region goes, but they're not in order of when I went there. And so I'm gonna post this video on YouTube and Facebook. So wherever you see it, I want to see people like comment underneath of where they've been. If they've been to the same area, same city that I was, what was your experience there? What you didn't or did like about it? Because I might not have had a good experience, and you may have. So, but to be honest, I didn't really have a bad experience in any of these areas, except for two cities I'm not really a big fan of. I don't really care to go back, and I'll tell you which ones they are. So California, I'll start there. I've been to a few places in California. Like I went to Los Angeles, I went to Hollywood. I have some family out there that are in, some film, TV industry. So I went to LA, and that place is crazy, man. I went to Los Angeles in 2009, I think. And so I always tell people this story. When I was flying in, I live in Florida, so technically I live in like a touristy area. So it feels weird saying this, but when I was flying into Los Angeles, we were about 20, 30 minutes from landing, and I looked out the window and I saw the Hollywood sign on the mountain. Like I had to kind of look, squint my eyes, but I saw it, and I'm like, oh shit, let me get a picture. So I grabbed my camera, and before I could turn my camera on and aim at it, the smog had covered it up and I couldn't see it anymore. The pollution in the air literally covered the sign where I couldn't see it, and I was just like, okay, put it away. I've heard about it. I heard it was very polluted over there because of all the people, but I didn't think it was that noticeable. So yeah, it was like a yellowish, nasty gray color. But it was just a crazy place because there's so many people. The traffic's wild. We all know that. But like when you're there, when you're in Los Angeles, you just see a whole bunch of people driving around like they're about to miss their parents passing away or their child being born. Like they're flying through traffic. They're turning corners like they think their car is on rails. They're driving nuts. There's like a bunch of people that look like they're 18 years old driving like a $500,000 car. You see a lot of that. You see a lot of you see some celebrities. I wouldn't say I saw a lot. I saw some celebrities there. I remember we went to this like really expensive restaurant, and I think it was called Next Door because the owner built this restaurant next door to his original restaurant, so he called it Next Door. Anyway, we're there, we're eating, and it's really dimly lit, and you're sitting on these like low profile sofas. You can't really see much. There's a big bar in there, and then Reba McEntire walked in, and I'm looking at her like, huh, very uneventful. I didn't really care. It was interesting to see such a famous person there. Um, and I saw some other people too, but I don't know. Los Angeles is one of those places I probably don't really care to go back. Um, Beautiful landscape, like that place. The topography is so awesome there. That's one thing I love about like Southern California. It's a beautiful place, but like it's overcrowded in a lot of areas, and of course politics. Not gonna get into that. But north of LA, I also went to Hollywood. I'll touch on that real quick. I went to Hollywood Studios and watched some episodes of Two and a Half Men get filmed. Saw some cast members there. My dad got to meet what's his name? Shit. How did I forget the biggest name in the whole show? Um, Brain fog. But yeah, my dad met that guy. Yeah. Anyway, you know who I'm talking about. Charlie Sheen. It happens all the time. I can't think of a word or a name, and then 2 seconds later it comes to me. He's a big fan of him, so he met him, and it was pretty interesting. I was just standing there looking at him like, I don't know what to say to the guy. I recognize him. I've seen him in a bunch of movies and this show, but I don't know what to say to him, so I'm not going to walk over there. North of Los Angeles, what am I saying? California. I went to Sacramento and also went to San Francisco Bay. I went to see some family, some family I didn't know I had in Sacramento, which was a pretty nice place too. Like we went to vineyards out there. You've got these rolling hills, these wind turbines everywhere. It was kind of surreal being out there. It was in a drought, so everything was like brown and golden. It wasn't green, but it was still pretty beautiful out there. The vineyards were nice, just seeing like endless miles of vines or vineyards. There's the only green that was out there was the vineyards, and then we went to this place where it's like in the middle of this gigantic vineyard. There's like this hill, and there was this little tiny like almost looked like a gazebo out in the distance, but it was this wooden building essentially that was very intricately built. It was very very nice. I don't know how to explain it. It looked like you're in the middle of Italy. And they just did like you go in there and they served wine and charcuterie boards basically. It was amazing, so good. And I actually walked through the vineyard. I grabbed a big chunk of grapes in my hand like this, just big old chunk. I got a picture on my Facebook of it. Big old chunk, and I just pick them off and eat them one by one when we were driving back. And they did have seeds in them. Just yeah, found out the hard way. Uh, we went and we drove from there down to San Francisco Bay, and that place was crazy. It was one of my favorite places as far as how everything looked. But apparently now, like things changed a lot since I've been there. This was back in like, fuck, when was this? I want to say like 2015 or so. I think is when I went out there, and now it's like the homeless problem out there so bad. It's you can't even avoid it. You can't even not see it. When I went out there, I didn't see anything like that. It looked like a normal city, normal downtown area kind of thing. We're just driving down these steep ass hills like you see in all these old TV shows. Seeing the trolleys and stuff like that. And then we got down towards the water. Like we went to Alcatraz. We went and we saw the Golden Gate Bridge. We went to the fort underneath the bridge. It was amazing. Went to this wax museum. And when we were at the dock that takes you to Alcatraz, you're at this dock where it's like a bunch of industrial areas, and I think some of them are government owned. I don't remember, but it was just kind of surreal being right there because I've seen so many movies and TV shows that were filmed right there. So when you're standing there, it's like you've seen it all before. And I got the same exact feeling when I was in Los Angeles. Like, not even just Hollywood, just Los Angeles in general. Driving around, you see a gas station, you're like, I've seen that before. It's crazy. Um, when I was in San Francisco, it was like August. And in Florida, it was like 93 degrees that day that I checked. And in San Francisco, it was like 55. It was wild. And there was like a bunch of these little floating wooden docks out there. Like, pretty much they'll be off to the side next to the pier, next to the restaurants. And it's just full of a bunch of walruses. They just pile up on there, just hang out all day long. And we took a boat out to Alcatraz and toured that for the day. That was just crazy. Learning about all the history there. I recommend that. If anyone just wants to be in an area that looks nice, has a lot of crazy fucking history, go to San Francisco Bay. They got a wax museum there. They got Alcatraz. They got good restaurants, all kinds of stuff. Moving over a little bit from there, I went to Vegas before too, and I'm not much of a gambler at all. I don't really care about legal prostitution, so to me, Vegas is kind of like I like seeing some mountains there. There wasn't that many mountains, but it looked pretty good out there. Being in like Vegas, where it's like Fremont Street and the Strip. It was pretty cool just to see all that stuff out there, like the Luxor and all these crazy things that grab your attention, all these hotels and casinos. It was cool to be out there to experience it for once, but like I said, I'm not really into the typical activities of Sin City. We did end up taking a tour where we hopped in this Hummer that was literally wrapped. It had a vehicle wrap on it that was the American flag. It stuck out like a sore thumb. And we drove from Vegas all the way out to the Grand Canyon. And that was the part of the trip that I loved the most. Sorry for clearing my throat so much. Yeah, basically, that I would recommend that to anyone as well. Like, that's almost number one on my list so far. Going out to the Grand Canyon itself, but if you could get a tour that drives you out there too, I think it's worth it because, it was like a 3-4 hour drive to get from where we were out to the Grand Canyon. We were in like the West Canyon, Southern Rim, I think is what it's called, by the Skywalk. And, the guy drives you out there. Sure, it's a long drive on some highway roads and stuff like that, but it's not like an interstate like out here in Florida. It's like you're on a 2-lane country road, like a desert road, where you don't really see anything. You see some mountains out here, you see cactus out here, you see a gas station or two once in a while, and that has its own charm in itself. And when you stop, you just like load up on snacks and shit because you don't know when you're gonna stop next. And you go pee, you force yourself. It's like, I don't know where we're gonna stop next. And then when the guy's driving you somewhere, he'll teach you about local things, like local folklore, legends, history, movie scenes that were done. Like Mars Attacks was filmed out there. There's some pink church out there that was in the movie. There's this big crater out there where there's like a bunch of abandoned cars in the bottom of it. That was in some movies too. We went over the Hoover Dam, which that was awesome. Like, you can't appreciate it when you're driving over the Hoover Dam because you just kind of see a little bit of water to your left or right. Although there's like some plaques and statues around the top of the dam that are showing tribute to the people who built it, people who lost their lives in the process of building it. But when you go off to the other side and you get out of your car and you can go to the like observation areas and look around, that's when you can really take it all in. That's when you see how nice it looks out there at the Hoover Dam. Then we kept going, and I don't need to go over all the small details of the trip, but it was one of the better places I went to, and it was just interesting because after the Hoover Dam, I remember we stopped at this like random checkpoint, and from what I can remember, it was like we stopped. There's like a fucking bifold sign sitting on the road, right? that had like a sense of urgency to it, and there's like two or three armed guards, like armed guards. They're looking at us like you have to talk to us first. If you just drive on through, we're gonna light you up. And I was like, what the hell is this like? I know it's like sacred land, but like, are they protecting something out here? So that was kind of interesting. And we drove out there, and once you get close to the canyon, you see some like elevated rock formations that are like red, super red. Just even like a normal daylight, 12 o'clock, noon, they're red as hell. But if the sun is setting and hitting that shit, it's crazy out there. Like photographer's dream. When you get close to the canyon, everything's just flat and plain. You don't see anything, and then you get closer, you see the lip. You see it just like drop down in front of you. You're like, oh shit. And that's when it kind of hits you, because like you can look at pictures and videos all day long. It does not do it justice. When you get out there, by the way, at least in the area that I was, there is nothing keeping you from falling off the cliff into the canyon. Nothing. You go to the cliff. There's some white people shit right here. You go to the cliff right here and just fucking look down. And I did that too. I mean, I didn't walk up to the very edge. Well, I sort of did. What I did was I grabbed my camera, my phone. I started recording a video, and I walked up to the like about a foot from the edge, and I did one of these where I put my phone over the edge, and I was like, and then I like stopped it, and I looked at the video, and I was like, oh shit, it's fucking nuts. Even that is like makes your fucking palms sweat, just by looking at that. The skywalk was cool because you're standing on this, like, I don't know how thick it is, some glass sidewalk. You get this like a horseshoe. And you look down like, well, it looks like a quarter-mile drop, And actually, recently some guy fell to his death there. I don't know how he managed that shit, but someone recently died there within the past, like, month, I think. Also, it's just, I'm pretty much going to stop it there because it's such a cool fucking place to be, and there's so much to do there. I recommend it. If you've never been to the Grand Canyon before, you have to go. I'm going again. I'm going to bring my daughter out there. I was actually planning to go there. I was starting to plan a trip to go out there this year. I think I'm just going to push it to next year, because if you do it right, you can do it super cheap, but I want to do it a certain way where it's going to be kind of expensive. So I'm going to push it to next year, I think. I highly recommend Grand Canyon. From there, moving over to Texas. I'm from Texas. I lived there also as an adult for a year and a half. I used to visit my dad every other year when I was living here in Florida. So I've been around a lot. Austin, Texas, Houston, Texas, obviously, Dallas, Fort Worth, Alamo, Battleship, Texas, Corpus Christi, El Paso. I've been all over Texas. And it is a fucking crazy state, man. Like, I got a lot of respect for Texas as a state. The sheer size of it is just wild. Like, it's bigger than Florida, and people don't realize, like, oh, Florida's not that big. What do you mean it's bigger than Florida? Of course it is. Dude, if you start from the tip of Florida's panhandle and you drive, not even to the Keys, if you drive to Miami, Homestead area, you're looking at, what is it, like about 8 hours? And then if you continue from Homestead and go all the way to Key West, that's like probably another fucking 2 or 3 hours. I don't remember. I never drove the length of the Keys. But I have driven everywhere else. So remember the cities I was talking about that I didn't really care for? I wouldn't care to visit them again. One of them is in Texas, and that is Dallas, Fort Worth area. All I can say is when I was there, like I landed, I looked out the window of the airport, and I was like, this is it? It looked kind of like Florida without the beaches. So not very nice, I guess. It was boring, tons of traffic, but there was like nothing to do. It felt like there was nothing to do there, which is a weird thing. It's like you got Atlanta, Georgia traffic with like far less nightlife, far less restaurants, far less anything. Like the personality wasn't there. The roads are all fucked up. There's a bunch of interstates that flood in like a moderate storm. and just to where you can't drive through it. You're stuck. It's horrible. Would never go there again. The Alamo was cool. Being out in like El Paso can be cool. Like being out there, as soon as you get to that part of Texas where it feels like you're getting out west, everything just changes in my opinion. The feeling of being out west is interesting to me. I don't know how to explain it, but I love being out west. Just being around the deserts and stuff is really cool. Battleship Texas basically has a battleship like docked somewhere where they kind of kept up with it, and you can go check it out, like a big floating museum. So they called it Battleship Texas. I'm moving over to Birmingham, Alabama. I only went there for work one time. Went there once, and it was on a work trip. I was there for like 6 days. Beautiful little city, basically, it was like the conservative version of Atlanta, Georgia. It's basically what it looked like. It had a few small rolling hills here and there. Wasn't flat like Florida. It was pretty nice little city. First thing I noticed when I got there, so I landed. I had to get an Uber to get the company truck, and then I had to drive the company truck to get fueled up, and then I had to do a route. I had to hit the ground running and work that day in a town I'd never been in. I stopped at a gas station to fill up, and it's stupid, really. But here's what happened. I went to a gas station. I walk inside. It's like a Shell gas station, but they had a wine aisle, which was weird. They didn't really have that in Florida. They had a aisle with some wine on it, and I noticed a girl picking out some wine. It was a white lady, about my age, late 20s at the time, and just the shapes on her. I was like, what are they feeding these girls down here? I might have to move down here. This is... Moving on. Birmingham, Alabama. Beautiful place. Atlanta, Georgia. Another place I don't ever plan on going back to. Atlanta, Georgia, there's there's a lot of stuff to do there. Nightlife, bars, lounges, whatever. Probably more crime of anywhere else I've been to on this list. Maybe with the exception of the last place on my list, so wait for that. But Atlanta, I went there so many times. I think I went to Atlanta like 7 different times, and every time I wake up in the hotel and I'm getting this, hotel breakfast and I'm watching the news, it's another murder. And not just 1 or 2. A bunch of overnight shootings, murders, drive-bys, stabbings, every day. Not a fan. Atlanta, it looks pretty cool out there, Outskirts like Marietta, Alpharetta, like there's a bunch of areas northwest and northeast of Atlanta that are fucking beautiful, actually. I'm a big fan of places that are very hilly and have some mountains. It's actually not bad, but like once you get close into the center, just not a fan. Savannah, Georgia, different story. Savannah, Georgia, unfortunately, I've only been there once. I plan on going back because that's a very nice city. Very good looking city, and it has like a lot of rich history. A lot of history with like trade and stuff like that. Like I think it was, what were they big in trading? Cotton or something? I don't remember what they were trading. Linens, textiles. I don't remember. But it's a very old city. They have like just these like beautiful brick sidewalks and roads everywhere, stone and brick all over the place. And they have this part where it's like I guess commercial buildings now, they're being used for like small restaurants and bars, but they're built above a lower level. When you go down to the lower level, you just feel like you're back in like 1905. It's crazy. And this is right by the river in Savannah, Georgia, like the main strip there. Some of the names of the area escape me now, but man, what a nice place. I stayed at this little hotel called the Thunderbird Inn, which was like right around the corner, a couple blocks away. And it was nothing fancy. It's just like, it's literally built like a motel. And from like, it's kind of like, it gives you like a 1950s, 1960s feel. When you go in, it's small, bare bones. There's nothing to it. Uncomfortable chair next to the bed, I don't think it even had any appliances in it. It was just like a TV. I think it had a TV. I'm not even sure if it had a TV. I don't care. I never watched TV at the hotel. Um, but a nightstand, a lamp, a bed, a bathroom, basic as hell. And they have like this little moon pie and RC cola that they put on your pillow on every room. And for some reason, it's like this little thing they do. It's weird. Um, Actually, a tasty combination. And cool little place though. I don't mind. It was clean, cheap, whatever. Right down the street from the area you want to be in. A lot of movies been filmed in Savannah, Georgia too. Forrest Gump was filmed in Savannah, Georgia, and some other ones I can't remember. Another place I went to just above that, Gatlinburg, Tennessee. Um, I went there twice now. I took a road trip, drove there and back twice. Gatlinburg, Tennessee, one of my favorite places. Um, if you like the mountains and you like just being somewhere that's um, not super expensive to get away, they obviously are known for their cabins, but there's a place that I visit out there that's cheaper than any cabin, and it's more like being in a fully furnished apartment building. Really, it's nice. Um, Gatlinburg, Tennessee, it's like, yeah, it has its ups and downs because certain times of the year it's so fucking crowded. It's just like mind blowing. You got to plan ahead of time. You got to make reservations ahead of time. You have to leave early, and you're going to be doing a lot of looking for parking, and a lot of walking still, no matter how much planning you do. Um, the two times I went was at the same exact time of year, the week between Christmas and New Year's Eve. 6, 7 days, both trips. They call it Hell Week because there's just so much people there. If that's as bad as it gets, it's really not that bad, honestly, because I feel like some people aren't there because of how cold it is. It gets cold. The last trip I had, it didn't snow till the last day I was there, but the year before, it snowed almost the whole trip, I think. It was awesome. Car got some battle scars from it too because I slid coming down a road trying to get to like an observation area. I didn't realize there was ice, so my car started sliding back, and I kind of like wiggled it around, got the weight of the car down, and I avoided crashing and dying. But I got a little scratch in the bumper, so it's a battle scar. Right next to Gatlinburg, Tennessee, Cherokee, North Carolina, on the other side of the mountains, you have a few popular mountains there, hiking trails. Newfound Gap, Blue Ridge Parkway, um, Foothills Parkway. Musts. You have to drive these roads. Foothills Parkway is fucking beautiful. Blue Ridge Parkway, it's a bigger, more popular one. Both of them. And the Tail of the Dragons over there. When you go over the mountains in Gatlinburg, heading south, make your way towards Newfound Gap. You end up in Cherokee, North Carolina. Just as soon as you come down the mountain, you end up at ground level. Bam, you're in Cherokee, North Carolina. And that was an awesome place to be for me because as soon as I got out there, I literally I came through the gate to the park, and which was the mountainous area, and they closed it down because it got too dangerous. They closed it down and it was too icy up there, but somehow I made it out. When I got down there was like elk everywhere. I just remember there being some fields I pulled off in, and it was like this giant field, maybe 2 square miles, and there was like 60 elk just walking around. They're walking up close to the street, like walking in front of your car. They don't give a shit. They're just chilling. The noise they make is crazy, loud as hell. So I was taking pictures and filming them, and it was still snowing a little bit. So, man, it was just a very memorable time. And I do want to go back again a third time eventually, but I don't want to do it 3 years in a row. So, highly recommend that. Inexpensive trips and very beautiful place to be. Let's see. So much to do out there, too. There's a lot of stuff to do. Not big on nightlife. That's the thing. If you want to take a trip somewhere and you're big on like staying out till 2 in the morning drinking, Gatlinburg is not the place. But there's a few cities close by that is, like Nashville, Knoxville. Knock yourself out. One of the coolest places I've been to, Minneapolis, Minnesota. And much like San Francisco Bay, it was a lot nicer before all these like George Floyd riots and shit. Because San Francisco Bay got worse. There was a lot of riots out there, some damage done, some what do they call it? Vandalism and more homeless people now. Minneapolis, Minnesota is the same way. I went before all that stuff happened, and the thing about Minneapolis, Minnesota is that whole city was just spotlessly clean. That was the cleanest city I've ever seen in my entire life. No trash anywhere. On the street, driving around, walking on the sidewalk, didn't matter. Um, it was kind of interesting to me because when you look on a map, you're like, oh shit, I'm like this close to the fucking U.S. Canada border. I'm like right there. And in the wintertime, surely it gets cold. Like they told me everything freezes solid up there. Um, I think I went in like March, April, so it was perfect. It was nice. Um, I landed Monday. I had to do some work. The very next day, like I was covering a manager in that market, and for some reason they were closed on Tuesdays. So I went, landed, hit the ground running on Monday. On Tuesday, they said, okay, you're off today. I know you're here without your car, so you can do whatever you want. You can drive the work truck wherever you want, whatever you want to do. So I asked the lady that was cleaning my room, I said, what is there to do around here? I like to go kind of check out some scenery. So she told me about this park called Minnehaha Falls. And basically has a waterfall. It's like 50, 60 feet tall. You walk across the street and you walk over this little stone pathway. There's like, looks like a visitor area, some spot where you can get some food. And then you turn right and you go down these old stone steps all the way to the bottom. And you're looking up at this giant waterfall. That was one of the coolest places I've been to. There was people there, but it was very slim. There was like maybe 20 people there total. But it was frequented a lot because there's a lot of spots where when you get down to the very bottom and you're walking around at the base of the waterfall, there's like some grass, some dirt over here, some trees and bushes, and you'll see like a random little mound where someone like stabbed their flag in it. Like I saw all kinds of flags like Russia, Japan, Canada, Germany, whatever. People who had visited there. And I remember this little fence that says no trespassing, right? But that's how you get up to the waterfall and you can get behind it. About 15 feet or so above the water line, you can get behind the waterfall, stand behind the water. And this sign says no trespassing. So I fucking jumped over it, obviously. I walked around, did a little bit of hiking. It was like a 5-minute walk. And it was sketchy because everything was like a little bit muddy and slippery. And as you get closer to the waterfall itself, the area that you're standing on gets really narrow. It's like 1.5 feet wide, and it's got like tree moss on it, super slick, and it just slopes down. So if you slipped and fall, you're going down into the base of the water where all that water is just slamming on top of you. You probably would drown. I don't know if that's survivable or not, but that was an awesome trip. As you go down away from the waterfall, the stream kind of goes crazy for a little bit, going over some rocks and trees and shit. But then it calms down, and the river just flows through like a foot deep. There's like a bunch of those little stones that people stack up on top of each other. Really nice place to go. I should go back there at some point too. I mean, the city center is massive and very popular. They call it Twin Cities. I don't know anything about downtown Minneapolis, Minnesota, but I liked everything about it, honestly. I should go back just for the hell of it. Last two places on my list, obviously, Florida. I've been everywhere in Florida. The Panhandle, the very tip. A little city called Century, Florida, which is only known for having a prison. Pensacola. Panama City, which is just a wreck from the recent hurricanes. Tallahassee. A little city called Monticello, which has like one traffic signal, I'm pretty sure, and absolutely no cell phone service. St. Augustine, Jacksonville. I don't give a shit about Jacksonville. I could never go back there and be happy. St. Augustine's pretty cool. It's changed a lot since last time I went there. A very historic place. They got some star forts where they used to, defend against people coming in from offshore. I should go back there too on like a weekend trip. Obviously, Orlando. I used to live there. Obviously, Tampa Bay. I live here now. Uh, all things considered, Tampa Bay is a nice place to live. Just it's getting expensive and crowded now. So it's like the new LA without the politics. So I'll see where things go in the next couple of years. Ocala, Gainesville, that random armpit of Florida where it reaches the panhandle, is like no cell service out there. It's kind of sketchy even for a white guy. You don't know what kind of people you're gonna run into out there. Very weird spot. And you go down, you got Sebring, you got Lake Okeechobee, Miami, Palm Beach, Jupiter, Homestead. They got a racetrack in Homestead apparently too, like Sebring. You got the Keys, you got Naples, Alligator Alley, Everglades National Park. All these places. I've been everywhere in Florida. It's a love-hate, let me tell you that. Last on my list, probably the highest crime rate, but it's not in the United States. Sorry, I think I'm getting sick, so I'm like stumbling over all my words. I went to Dominican Republic, and it was like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Actually, it was almost exactly 1 year ago. I was in Dominican Republic, flew out there for I think 6 days. It was pretty cool, honestly. Like, I'm not much of a just go on a trip somewhere just to sit out by the beach and by the pool and drink alcohol a day. That's not my version of a vacation because I can do the same fucking shit here. I'm surrounded by beaches and water. There's bars everywhere. Doesn't really do it for me. But it is a nice looking place. The beach sand is a lot nicer than Florida. It's like more golden brown. It's softer. The water's more clear over there. There's mountains. There's countryside. It's a cool place to go. It can be very cheap too. Like, very cheap. We stayed in a pretty nice hotel, resort, all inclusive, and the price was not bad. But when I say cheap, what I mean is like when you're going out to eat, when you're tipping people, like when you're buying something, it's cheap. Went on an excursion and did all these, did all these activities, and it was like nothing. I think I spent like $70. Or if you do the same thing, in some U.S. state, it would be like $300, $500 to do all these activities. We basically took these buggies and drove them around the countryside, drove them over these rocky dirt roads, and went to this little beach access that was kind of hidden off in the middle of nowhere. Man, what a nice fucking place that was. Just the water, the beach out there. There's like rocks and caves over to the right. And there was like beautiful women from all over the world vacationing here. There wasn't many people at this particular beach. But, there was girls from like India over here. Some white girls over here. Some light-skinned Spanish girls over here. Anyway, very nice place. Out of like 15 of these buggies, mine was the only one that broke down. Yeah. Of course, I'm capable of fixing everything, but I didn't have tools on me. The people that you go on the excursion with, the people you pay, they actually have a camera guy out there. There's two people that follow the whole group. There's a camera guy, which is a legit, this dude, young dude, maybe 20, 25, has a little DSLR camera. His pictures were fucking badass. You pay them for that shit, they email it to you. The pictures are insane. I got them. The other guy that followed us out there was kind of like the guide, but also had a little toolbox with him. So he got me up and running in like 5 minutes. It was very interesting. It was not an impressive toolkit. I remember seeing something like this in the tool bag or the toolbox. Phillips head screwdriver, some string, a couple of random sockets. Like, there was nothing in there, but he got it working. We went through the countryside, and what was interesting about that was you're driving through this countryside where it's like some dark-skinned Dominicans and also some Haitians live out there that kind of moved over and just live out in the middle of nowhere, and they pretty much just do some farming and stuff, agriculture. And they can hear you coming down the road, so their kids will run out to the edge of the street. Most of it's dirt road, some of it's paved, and they hear you coming, and when you when you come around their house, they have a bunch of like pink or red flowers that they picked from their yard, and they'll run next to your cart and try to hand it to you while you're driving by. It's the coolest thing. And then after some navigating through, about 30 minutes driving, we get to this cave, and we went down inside, walked down these steps, and there's this cave that opens up. It's real dark in there, but it's just clear water. You can see straight down to the bottom. I think it's like 30 feet, and it looks like it's like right there. Some some rocks that come up, to the left and right, and you could just dive in and go swimming. It's cold ass water. It was so cool, man. I love that so much. I could have spent all fucking day there. Like, you put a grill outside the cave, some drinks, some music. I would have never fucking left. Nice. It was a good experience going there. I might go back in the future. We'll see. Lastly, before I end this video, because I didn't want it to be too long, I just want to talk about where I want to go. So comment below wherever you see this video of where you want to go outside the country and why. And if you already are planning a trip, how much is it gonna look? How much is it gonna cost you? So I got cold feet with some of these because I started looking into a trip to Japan because my daughter, she's into some like Japanese culture stuff. She's learning how to speak Japanese. She likes a little bit of anime here and there. I like JDM cars, and a lot of the things about Japanese culture is really cool too. I would love to go to Japan. I was looking at Osaka, and man, just a flight there and back was like, ooh, let's plan this one for the future. Like, future. But a few places I want to go to Alaska. I want to go whale watching in Alaska. My dad and his wife were talking about doing that one year, and things didn't work out. Plans had to change, but I do want to do that. Japan, like I said, Osaka. I would love to experience some Japanese countryside and just all the cool little quirky things they have going on over there. Germany. I would love to go to parts of Germany and see some World War II history, like historical areas in person. I'd like to go to Egypt, obviously, and I would also like to go to Switzerland, obviously. I think one of the most beautiful places on earth has to be Switzerland. I would love to go there. I was looking into that one too. That one seems like a more expensive trip because, like, when you go to a place like Japan or like Dominican Republic, the flights and the hotel stay, or even the flights, is like the more expensive part. But like the hotel stay and the food and the activities and the tipping, gratuity, that shit's cheap. Not in Switzerland. Apparently, every little thing about Switzerland is expensive. So you have to be a really smart traveler, I guess, and find all the hacks with that because it's not cheap. So yeah. This podcast was kind of, something I wanted to just spark up conversation with going around traveling. One thing I noticed is that, like, when you're going through something, you got you feel like you're stuck. Maybe you're depressed, or you had some real bad shit going on in your life. Like, you got fired, got laid off, you had someone break up with you, you had some family member die, whatever the case. Especially when a lot of things happen at once. Sometimes if you just get out of your element, things heal a lot quicker. I noticed that in so many different ways and numerous times, because a lot of these times where I traveled, it was like a few of them I planned to go there at that time. Some of them were like very unexpected, like a work trip where I literally had like a couple days or a week heads up, and I just kind of went. So if I was going through something, I was going through something. I didn't have time to like get out of my mind. Or change my mindset, and sometimes I kind of did. But what I'm saying is, when you get out of your zone and you travel somewhere else new, especially if it's somewhere new you've never been before, especially when it's set up in a way where it's a mostly stress-free travel, where you're not worrying about only being there for a day or two. You got like 4 or 5 days, you're not worried about it. That can do a lot of good stuff for your mentality, and healing if you're going through something real bad. So to end, I say I encourage anybody who's going through some shit where they're not happy, they're not going through a good time in life, plan a cheap trip where it's somewhere you haven't been before, where it's pretty, um, I would say, slipstream, mainstream, where it's like people go there. It's not somewhere remote, but somewhere that's not too crowded. People obviously stress us all out, but take a take a trip somewhere. Take 2 days off during the week and the weekend. Take that 4 days, including your travel time, whether it's a road trip or fly somewhere. Research some cheap flights and spend a couple $100 on yourself. Get out of your zone and go experience something new. That helps a lot. So that's it. Episode number 3, Subsurface Podcast, talking a little bit about travel. I want to get some people on here with me and do some back and forth podcasts. I think they actually turn out better that way than just myself talking. Once I get really good at editing, my solo podcast will be a little bit better. I'll be able to add in clips and videos, pictures of things that I'm talking about, music. I'll be able to chop things up and make it funny as well. Until then, this is what I got. So the 1 or 2 people that are watching, I appreciate you. And I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching or listening. Bye.